Hey guys, it's Tom Box here, and today we are rocking the dragon, rock the dragon, Dragon Ball Z. Now, honestly, we're actually be waking the dragon. We're going to be talking about waking the dragon, the trap card that came on Flames of Destruction, and why you guys should probably side this card. Hell, even main deck this card, because this is one of those cards that make your opponent super salty, because it can act as an auto win button against them. And it's their fault when it gets triggered. That's the best part. And that means they get super salty, they know they've done goofed, and they threw the match down the drain. And all you can really do about it is kind of rub it in their face and be like, I don't know, man, it's not my fault this thing happened. It's just, they get so salty, they're like, oh my god, why are you running this trash? Oh my god, you're such a bad player. But like, really, they're the one losing, so who cares? Good luck, getting your bubble popped. Anyways, let's try not to be too salty, but we're going to be talking about this card mainly because this is a really awesome card. In terms of card effect, this card, all it does is if this card leaves the field due to your opponent's card effect, whether it's in the graveyard or banished, so I guess if it gets shuffled back in, you're kind of screwed. But if it does get popped or banished, you get to special summon a monster from your extra deck or your main deck. And it is not once per turn, so in other words, the triggering part is in your opponent's hands. So if they get a little greedy, they feel like playing it safe, well, this is one card to really punish them. And there are several matchups that really benefit by having this card in the back row to make your opponent super hesitant of blowing up your stuff in the back row. Before I get into it, I just want to give a huge shout out to the Patreons. You guys, I finally got my new camera, and now it's actually working. I'm testing it out right now, and the quality is so much better. You can see that there's no green screen tracing from my hands because the frame is much better and everything. So huge shout outs to you guys, huge thanks to you guys, and definitely the deck profiles and the live games are going to be so much better with this camera. So major thanks to you guys. And if you guys want to help support this channel, I'm really transparent with the spendings. You can help me on Patreon in the links down below. You guys get early access to my proxy, so you guys can get early practices for the favorite decks coming up. And as well, you get tournament entry and all that stuff, basically all covered. Anyways, aside from that, let's get back into this topic. So the multiple parts I'm going to be talking about this, it's going to be starting off with matchups because this card does seem very gimmicky. And is it actually going to work? Well, we'll talk about the matchup breakdown first, and then we'll go into the monster choices for generic stuff. Like, I got 7 monsters in my lineup. Perhaps you guys have other monsters to offer to summon with this. Now, remember, this card does summon from extra deck and main deck, which is amazing. So even if you don't have an extra deck, you can still play this card, which is, A-okay. Now, you know what? This is like kind of like if your opponent does pop it, it's like you get to summon Shenron, you get your one wish, and your one wish is your one summon from anywhere. But sometimes, in the later seasons of Dragon Ball, Shenron gives you 2 wishes now. So the 2 wishes means your opponent pops 2, say with a Twin Twister or with a Heavy Storm Duster. Okay, what do you do then? Well, you gotta minimize the chances that your opponent can counterplay you. That's something that you should think about because just because you get it doesn't mean you're always going to win. Of course, certain matchups you do have an auto win monster that comes out, but in some cases maybe your opponent can counter it, so you gotta minimize that. So what are the best combinations? What are the best 2 guys to come out? And if you're blessed with RNGs and your opponent suddenly goes Black Rose, blow your board up, and then you're like, oh my god, my hand was so bad, now it's freaking amazing. It's like Shenron likes you or something. Man, you get normally 2 wishes, but I like this guy, you get 3 wishes. Like, that would be amazing. What do you do then? How do you actually minimize the downfall? Because summoning 3 dudes can potentially mean you're open to Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere mode. So that's something that you actually have to be careful of. But we'll talk about my choices and what are some of the fun things that you can try to bring out. Basically, it's an auto win button once you bring out this card. Now, if you do lose after putting out 3 dudes with this card, what is wrong with you? You must have done something really bad in order for like RNGs to troll you like that. It's like, alright, I brought my best monsters, the board is locked down, and your opponent will just happen to have Sphere mode at that moment. Yeah, you gotta do some serious self-reflecting if you do that. So when it comes to matchups, there's 3 decks that come to mind as easy triggers for this particular card. The first one being True Draco. True Dracos naturally have Masterpiece, they have Heritage, they have Disciples, all of which are capable of popping back row very easily for that matter, because, well, the True Draco deck naturally synergizes by sending stuff into the graveyard, and all these spells that get sent to the graveyard, they trigger a back row popping, and who doesn't want to gain that advantage? That's how the deck plays. And sometimes they'll even pop it with the Draconic Diagram, and that's just easy trigger for you, and it's instant kill for your, well, for them, because they're gonna die because you're gonna summon Ultimate Falcon, and they naturally don't have outs. You're putting the factor of luck in your favor. You make them hesitant to pop your back row, and that's when you can really kind of punish them with heavier back row. In fact, you can actually use real back row, mix it in with other back row after your opponent has seen the card. They're not gonna be as willing to pop your back row, and then you can even be extra insistent to kind of really trigger them. It's like, so what, you want to activate your card to pop this? You like even point to the card, and maybe it's a real card, maybe it's a bluff, but that's something you can do to a true Draco player, and that's actually gonna piss them off a little, just because they don't know if that's something that they should actually be worried about, like a torrential tribute, because most of the cases they're not really immune to traps. And in terms of the second matchup, there's Spirals. Nightmare Spirals is a thing. It is a very scary matchup. And, well, let's just say the deck naturally has a bunch of monsters that just love popping cards. We have Super Agent, and we also have Spiral Tough. And these two are just going to wreck the board. And if they see this once, are they gonna fall for it again? I don't know. We'll wait and see. We'll see if your opponent's smart enough. But adding that factor of luck of an auto win button against certain opponents does feel very good. Now the third matchup is Trickstar. I'm not sure if this is actually going to work out properly. If you play light stage, let's just say your opponent can stun the back row. And based off of my knowledge and rulings anyway, the card does say that you must activate it. But the thing is about this card, it has no other card text aside from the trigger-like effect, and you can't forcefully activate trigger-like effects, because if you can forcefully activate it, well, might as well just summon it straight to the board, right? But that's not gonna happen. So in other words, you're going to send it to the graveyard, and because you sent it to the graveyard, well, hello Naturia Exterio, you're gonna be able to negate the stuff. If they already have that reincarnation set ready to rip your apart, like your hand, well, you're going to be able to negate that, which is great, because the card in graveyard that you can banish would be the Waking the Dragon Trap card already. So you're all basically good to go. So these are three of the good matchups. But what about a generic card that does pop spells and traps? Right now we have Nightmare Phoenix. If your opponent does go into a Nightmare Phoenix just to clear back row, this is your one chance to punish them so that they can't establish an extra link. So normally they could potentially establish an extra link if they play a bunch of Nightmares. But if you do just jam a monster right into the zone and it's a monster they can't clear, this is going to be a huge problem for them. Oh, I almost forgot, Altergeist also naturally sends stuff to the graveyard thanks to Meluseek's awesome effect of sending a card after dealing battle damage. And one of the best parts about this battle damage timing effect is that it's a trigger effect that activates in the graveyard, and you just triggered it during the damage step, and therefore there is almost no response to this card. You can't ash it at this point. So if Meluseek sends it to the graveyard, well, congratulations, you are about to get yourself one of the best free summons ever that can't be ashed. Now, in terms of best monster lineup, I've got a list for you guys. Maybe you guys can sample it, see how you like it. If you like it, definitely give it a try. See if you can troll your opponent and punish them for being a douchebag or liking to pop your back row. Whatever, just make them feel bad. First monster is going to be Ultimate Falcon. Raider after Ultimate Falcon, immune to everything. That's right, he's immune to every form of card effects except for getting tributed by Kaiju. But naturally, he will destroy a true Draco player easy because they don't have natural outs. But just because this guy is immune to all card effects doesn't mean he's invincible. He's still susceptible to battle. Decks like a Pendulum Magician can boost their own attack to be stronger than your dude. They also have access to Lightning. If they play Lightning can easily run this guy over. So just because he's one of the best ones doesn't mean he's, well, godly. And I'd like to cover the weaknesses of each choice. The second choice is going to be Naturia Exterio. Depending on the matchup you have, you could probably go into this monster instead, especially if you think it's going to be a bit of a grindier game. This is probably one of the better choices out there because it shuts down 2/3 of a deck, all the traps and all the spells. And it's not once per turn. It is hard to summon naturally, but thanks to the fact that you're summoning out of your wish from Waking the Dragon, you're going to be able to, well, stun your opponent. Now against Trickstar, if you went first, you just set this card. They use the field spell, stun the card, and send it to the graveyard. I think that's exactly how it works because you can't trigger it, of course. You're going to summon this card, and if they have a set reincarnation and you feel like they're gonna go for that droll combo to rip your hand apart, this is one way to save your hand, because the Trickstar deck possibly can run lightning, and if they get to that point, you're gonna have a very, very tough time. So you want to be able to negate and destroy, just not let that happen. That's the whole goal. Okay, so third monster here is kind of an interesting one. It's the one that, for people in the GOAT format, they are very familiar with. It's going to be Last Warrior from Another Planet. Being able to shut down the entire summoning line is amazing. So there is no summoning whatsoever, no normal summon for either player. Now, there is a catch though. If you do summon that with this guy, he does need to pop all the monsters on the field on your side anyway. So it comes with a dark hole price, but you know how annoying Vanity's Fiend was. You know how annoying, well, any inside a summoning lock is. This guy is that plus more. Yeah, so, but your opponent can still set cards, so that's a thing. You gotta punch through from that, and you can't special summon either, so you're kind of locked out yourself. So this card against Trickstar is actually pretty good, because if they can't Scapegoat, they can't summon Candina, they can't summon anything, and everything's kind of mediocre at this point. Just giving you a heads up why this card's really, really awesome. Now the fourth choice here is kind of interesting. Never thought that this card would kind of come to my attention. It is the Majestic lineup for the 5D Dragon. So we have Majestic Star Dragon. So it's 3800 body. Really awesome. Here's the funny thing. Normally, if you do summon out this card, you would shove a Stardust Dragon into your graveyard, and therefore during the end phase, you have to summon out that Stardust. The thing is, you're not having that Stardust, and therefore you can't trigger the end phase effect of tagging this monster back out. That's the crappy part. You can't summon out Stardust because there's no way you can actually trigger the mandatory trigger because the monster is missing. You have to target a Stardust in your graveyard, so you get to keep the monster. But what does this monster do aside from like the 3500 body? So you get to negate any sort of effects, and the moment you negate anything on your opponent's side, you get to blow up their entire board. You destroy all cards your opponent controls. So that's Majestic Star Dragon. The other Majestic Dragon, which is Dragon number 5, or card number 5, it's going to be Majestic Red Dragon. This card cannot be destroyed by card effects, has a huge body of 4k, okay? On top of that, he destroys all defense monsters, and he can also stun a monster. And again, because you won't have Red Dragon Archfiend in the graveyard, you're not going to be able to trigger the summoning effect during the end phase, and therefore, you get to keep the monster. Because your thing isn't going to trigger, there's nothing to target, which is a great way, because normally, they kind of suck as they go away. But if you get to keep the monsters, they're freaking amazing. And monster number 6 is going to be Archlord Christia. It's just a free way of summoning a lockout monster, and you don't need to run an extract to run this. So if you're playing like Herald or something like that, and you run Christia, this is the monster you want to just throw a jam onto the board. It is absolutely worth it. Of course, the other choices are pretty good too, but this one is just one of the more annoying ones because it shuts down your opponent from being able to play. And monster number 7, we have a Cyber Dragon Infinity. So this is the one monster that if you think you're actually low on resources, you want to grind it out against your opponent, this is actually a pretty decent monster to do so because you can start absorbing your opponent's monster and gain additional negation. And Cyber Dragon Infinity's negation effect negates beyond just the card activation. It can negate the effects of spells and traps as well, which is why this is an okay choice. You can use it to absorb one of your own monsters if you like, but that is also a choice that you can definitely make. Now it's time for Wombo Combo. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but if you're going to go into Wombo Combo, here's something that you can definitely try out. Anything with Ultimate Falcon plus a Topologic monster. If your opponent has too many back row that you don't like dealing with, go with Trisbana in your Chainlink 2, and Chainlink 1, go for the Ultimate Falcon. Ultimate Falcon will not get banished, and you will banish your opponent's entire back row, dishing out a ton of damage to your opponent as well. And you also put them at the threat of over 6,000 damage. Because if you can actually potentially even OTK your opponent at this point, because they're going to die from the burn and the swing from your monster. It is very devastating if you use a Topologic Trisbana. But that being said, the other Topologic monster is also not too bad. Topologic Bomber Dragon. If you do use Topologic Bomber, the thing is, Ultimate Falcon isn't going to die. That's the thing. You're going to be able to go Chainlink 2, summon out Topologic Bomber Dragon. Chainlink 1, summon out this bad boy, Ultimate Falcon, and you get to blow up the entire board and go for a massive swing. And the swing is, again, over 6,000 damage. Pretty easily. Even if your Topologic Bomber Dragon gets killed along the way, you still got a nice 3,500 body to actually deal with your opponent. Finally, for the triple choice, I have two triple choices. One's a very silly one. One is if you play the old school Apex Avian, just summon 3 copies of that and see how your opponent likes that. Of course, you can get sphere moded. Since you can get sphere moded, here's my other choice, which is go for a Link 2 monster or whatever that has arrows pointing outwards enough to point that you can summon 2 other dudes. So the first one is the Link monster with 2 arrows, whether it be a Mrs. Radiant, because it's gonna get popped and you probably want to shove that back into the extra deck. So Mrs. Radiant is a bad choice. And then you can go with our big boss monsters of Ultimate Falcon and then Chain Link 1, summon out Last Warrior from another planet. Therefore, Last Warrior is going to pop the entire board. Ultimate Falcon is going to stay alive, but Mrs. Radiant is going to get popped. Mrs. Radiant goes back into the extra deck, which is okay. And now you can't get Kaiju, you can't get Lava Golem, then you can't just basically get hurt. Until your opponent actually have 2 card outs, they're basically stuck with a board where they cannot summon. You have Ultimate Falcon and you'll be punching them in the face as fast as possible. That is the triple play, because normally you won't be able to bring these monsters out, and guess what, your extra monster zone is open again, so you have that option as well. But Last Warrior has to die first. But yeah, that's my triple play lineup. If you do get the triple wish, if you do lose after that, I don't know what you've been doing, but you've clearly been doing something wrong. But you can also do the topologic play as well. But that's the thing, if you do trigger out the topologic play or the any of those plays, the other monster isn't going to live. So you have to make your choices a bit more carefully. And for counterplay, you know what, let's just go over 2 cards that are pretty good against countering this Waking the Dragon. One's Rivalry of Warlords, especially when your opponent already has a monster. That limits them from playing the game any further, and you can actually stall out your opponent as much as possible until you have your out. Second card is, of course, Ash Blossom Joyous Spring. If you have Ash Blossom Joyous Spring, due to the fact that the card does summon out of the main deck, you have Ash Blossom to be able to counter this card. So if you're not willing to blindly pop your opponent's cards, or maybe you're forced to blindly pop your opponent's cards, if you have an Ash Blossom Joyous Spring, that might be your lifesaver so that you don't automatically lose the game. So it makes Ash Blossom a bit more of a more versatile side deck card to counter against auto win buttons like Waking the Dragon. And that is all I got for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit me up with a thumbs up. If you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, and MOS is coming up, so there's going to be lots of deck profiles, lots of live games, and I hope to get some good commentary in there. Hit that subscribe button. As always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV. Love you guys. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please drop us a like so we know we are doing a good job, and you can also subscribe to MST.TV for more fantastic videos by clicking on the button on the left. Don't forget to check out our partners at Imperium Duelist. They make really high quality mats, including some of my own limited edition release stuff. And if you want to check out one of our past videos, click here on the right. As always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV, and I'll see you next time.